Well, good morning, everyone. Just to let you know, everybody's mics are muted. So if you need to talk, you still have the ability to unmute your mic. But just to cut down on feedback from everyone, we've got everybody's mics muted. Just to let you know, at the end of this webinar, we will do a Q&A. And so we will, down there at the bottom, if on your little Google Meet, you'll see a little hand like this. So if you have a question, you can click on that. It'll actually raise your hand to us. And so we can answer any questions that you have, but we'll do a Q&A at the end. But just first of all, I just want to say welcome to the webinar. I am Stephen Ammons.
And I'm John Ammons.
And we are twins, for those of you that may not know that. But we're excited to do this. This is actually our first webinar with this new platform. We've used it a little bit before, but a little bit different this time. So we plan on doing several of these webinars. We've got one that's going to be coming up. I think our next webinar will be on websites. So if you are interested in websites, you want to know what does BSM offer, then we'll be covering that. And then we'll also be doing possibly some breakout sessions for if you already have a website and kind of talking to other stores that have websites and kind of getting some feedback from what they're doing and what things
What's
you're
working,
doing.
what's not working.
Yeah. And so just to let you know, that's going to be coming up on the horizon. Like I said, everybody's mics are muted. So if you need to talk to us, you can click unmute and talk to us. But thank you everyone for being here. First of all, I'm just going to pray over the session, and then we'll jump into the actual webinar. It should go full screen for y'all once I present the window. So that you don't have to worry about seeing all the pictures. And then, so if you would just pray with me real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Father, we are so thankful to be here today. Thank you for these stores that are attending. Lord, I pray that this would be good information for them to use to further your kingdom, God, to put more literature into the hands of the lost. Father, I pray that this time would glorify and honor your name. And just thank you for this time together. Thank you for being just allowing us to be a part of this industry. Lord, we love you. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead. And again, some of these things are new. So we're going to try to get this slideshow here going.
Bear with us. We think it will go smooth.
Here we go. Let's share that out. All right. So we've got the slideshow there. Give me just a moment. All right. You should be seeing the webinar. You should see that opening screen. So if you don't, let us know in the comment section. But we're going to go ahead and get started here.
Do we want to stay on camera?
We're going to go ahead and take us off camera while this, so that's not a distraction. So I'm going to take us off camera, keep the mic on, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into the webinar here. And you can feel free to turn your camera off if you want, or leave it on, whatever you want to do there. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks again for being here. John and I are going to be presenting this today. This will be recorded, so please know this is being recorded. You'll be able to access it later. We'll also be sharing this slideshow that we're doing today with you, so that if you want to go back and reference it or show it to your other staff, you can do that as well. So you'll have full access to this recording and then full access to the actual Google slideshow that we're going to be using today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to be covering hardware and software setup. We're going to be covering how is inventory synced with the system, depending on what method you're using. What are the best practices for remote sales? And then we'll be covering licensing, and then tips from you guys, tips that you shared that you thought were helpful. And so if you have any comments, please drop them in the comments. We will do our best to monitor those comments as we go. So if you have anything that you want to add or ask questions on, just drop those in the comments section. But let's go ahead and get started. John.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're just going to kind of talk about the hardware setup that you're going to need. And so basically, we're going to be talking about two different situations here. Preferably, you do have internet access, which will allow you to have a live connection to the store. Alternatively, if you don't have internet, we do have some options there. And so we can go ahead and we'll cover that as well. Definitely the preferred method is to have internet access. And so we'll get started here.
Yeah. So first of all, we want to talk about it because it's probably the most common question we get is what equipment do I need? And so I want to go through and show you the best equipment options that you have. And so the first thing that we have are the options. Typically, you're going to use a laptop or like a Service Pro tablet. You could be using a Samsung tablet, something that's running full Windows. Now, some people take their whole point of sale setup when they go offsite. That's fine. It's just a lot more setup. So these are going to be the easiest methods is using a laptop or like a Surface tablet. The other thing is we use a Star TSP 100 printer. So it's typically the same printer that you use in your store. So if you're not using one of your printers and you're going off site, you can use that printer off site. You can use your scanner off site if you're not using it. This is a wired scanner. And then the last thing you have is the PAX A35. This is the new PAX A35. It is not the S300. The new PAX A35 is very easy to connect to Wi-Fi. So if you're going back and forth between your store and off-site, it makes it, if you have an extra station you're not using, you could actually utilize that A35. Or a lot of people will just buy an A35 just to have for remote sales. So that's an option there. So, and that can be wired. If you happen to be somewhere off-site where you have a wired connection, you can plug in that laptop, the Surface. You can plug in the receipt printer. Everything can be plugged in. And you can use a docking station if you want to use a docking station to plug all that stuff into. We can talk more about that later. The other option, I want to show you some other options that you have. If you want to be a little more on the go, then again, you still need the laptop or the Surface tablet, but we do offer a mobile receipt printer that can go right there on your belt. So you can literally tear them right off of your belt right there out of the receipt printer. We offer a wireless gun. So maybe you're wearing an apron. You can put the scan gun in one of your pockets there. And then the other thing is the PAX A35, that can be powered off of a USB device. So you could have that plugged into the laptop and not even plugged into the wall anywhere. And then using that. And then the last thing I listed there is a Swipe Simple. That's going to use your existing credit card account. It's like a Square, but it's using your merchant credit card processing fees. So that's going to be using a cellular network. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because you typically use that in typically an offline mode. So we'll talk more about that. John will actually talk about that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get him to talk about what happens if you don't have internet access. And I do want to say the preferred method is to have internet access, and we'll talk about more benefits on why, but the preferred method are the ones we just talked about. So John, would you talk about the offline modes?
Yeah, so the offline mode, we put some instructions here. You'll be able to click on that link. Um, it's it's going to utilize our sales on consignment. And so you're probably going to take like probably just a cash drawer, and then the Swipe Simple solution, or Square solution. And this is just where basically you're going to consign some items out to yourself. You're going to go out there, you're going to sell what you sell. And then when you come back, you're going to return all the items that you didn't sell. And then you're going to ring up the items. And so this is an offline mode. And so that's what you do if you don't have, and again, we have those instructions there, but that's what you'd use if you didn't have internet.
Yeah, and I want to add just one thing. So this, a good example would be maybe you're taking 20 or 30 products to a little small church that's doing an event. That's really, and you're not going to have internet, maybe they're way out in the boonies or whatever it is, and you're not going to have internet access. Does everybody use the word boonies? I hope so. I don't know. But maybe you don't have internet access. That's what it's great for. This also, just because we're on this program, you can also use this sales on consignment feature if you want to sell. Maybe you're doing a partnership with a coffee shop or another independent retailer, and you want them to sell some books in their store for you. And maybe you're selling some of their products in your store for them. Then this allows you to set them up as a consignee and then be able to reconcile records and everything. So just to add, that is another feature that you can use that sales and consignment for. But now what I want to do is I'm going to jump into we're going to talk about the software setup, and John's going to discuss kind of how do you set up the computer to ready to go offsite, right? So we've talked about what hardware we need, but what do you need software? What do you need to load on your laptop or your Surface Pro? And so John's going to discuss kind of what steps are needed for that.
Okay, so again, we have a link here. You're going to want to click that link first, and that's going to take you to a Google document. And what it's going to tell you how to install BSM on a client computer. Another thing, though, to keep in mind, you're going to have to do a few things at the store in preparation for your cell. You have to forward some ports in your router and your hardware equipment. So that it knows when somebody tries to connect from outside the store, it knows what to do when it gets to the store. And so you might have to get help from your internet provider. Of course, our support's available to help you know what questions to ask if you need them.
And one thing real quick, this is a one-time setup. So you're just going to do these next two steps one time. You don't have to do them every time. It's just the first time before you go out remotely. The next step you could do later on. If it's a new employee, you may have to go in and enable it. But go ahead.
And so then the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go for each employee that's going to be working remotely. You will have to go into their employee record and just enable remote access. And then that's all you have to do at the store. Once you get that client installed on the client, what you'll do is it's going to put a shortcut just like you're at the store. You're going to run that shortcut. It's going to ask you for your employee name and password. You put that in, and you're going to be right in the software just like you're at the store. And so it's super easy. And of course, support's here in case you need any help. We'll be here for you.
Yeah. So really, the only thing different is when you double click the shortcut in the store, it just comes straight up. Obviously, we want security, and it's got all the security built in. You know, it's PCI compliant, all that stuff. But when you double click that shortcut, it is going to ask for the employee's name from EMP and also their password from EMP. So both of those things have to be set for them to be able to access the system. All right. So the next thing we're going to jump into is really talking about how is the inventory synced? What do you have to do? How is the inventory going to stay in control? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let's go ahead and jump into that. So the first thing is the preferred method, right? The preferred method is that you have a Wi-Fi or a hotspot connection when doing remote sales because that's the best option, right? Sometimes that's not an option, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But when you're connected live to your store using version 9, it's going to be a live sync to your store. So there's no need to manually adjust inventory at all. Your inventory synced live. Now, when the other thing is John just said this, but it acts like you're in the store. So when you're doing sales and everything, it's adjusting the inventory on hand live. It's automatically telling the ordering program, hey, these items have been sold. We need to bring those items back in. If you're bringing those items in, just so you know, if you're bringing items in just for this event and they're items you're not going to normally carry in your store, we have a grouping set up for special orders and some other groupings so that it's not trying to reorder products you've sold in an event that you don't think would sell in the store. So we can cover that more in detail later. Now, we also offer the offline mode. Now, that's going to use the sell and consignment feature that we talked about. There is a walkthrough guide here, and on the other slide, you'll basically create a consignee. You'll scan the items out of the store. You'll sell the items when you're offline. So like using the cash drawer and maybe that swipe simple or a Square unit for the credit cards. And then you'll sell those items offline. And then when you return to the store, you'll scan your returned items that you didn't sell. And again, there's instructions on how to do that, but the inventory does not get updated until you ring up those items after you've brought them back into the store when you're doing offline. Remember, if you're doing online, it's easy. You don't have to do anything. If you're doing offline, there's some manual steps that you have to do to manage that inventory. So just keep that in mind. And now we're going to jump into another section. The best practices. What are the best recommendations when doing remote sales? And so these are some ones that we think are really good. So we're going to go ahead and jump into these. And John's going to go ahead and talk about why do offsite sales matter?
Well, so yeah, offsite sales matter because you're going to get a different customer base. So you're going to reach new customers at these fairs, conferences, pop-up shops. church events. You're going to be able to build your brand awareness, tell people about who you are and what you're doing. And this is also going to be a way to get outside of your store, and you're going to be able to increase your revenue and really create more personal interactions with customers. And then hopefully those lead to long-term, relationships. Maybe they're coming to a temporary sale, but hopefully you maintain them as a customer in your actual store. And so that's what you're really striving for, is to get those relationships.
Yeah, and the other thing is really being prepared. Um, Being prepared really is the key. Inventory planning.
Yep. You want to focus on best sellers. Is this a Christmas time event? Seasonal items. You really want products that are going to resonate with the event's audience. So if it's a special event, you obviously want to bring in those kind of items. And bookstore manager manages your inventory in real time, so your stock levels are going to stay accurate. What you might consider doing is doing maybe some special promotions and pricing. It's important to have clear pricing that is consistent with the store. If you want to set up some special discounts, you can do so. Bundles, or an event only offer that they can only get if they go to the event. If you don't know, Bookstore Manager does have a kits program. This allows you to group a bunch of like items. So maybe it's a Mother's Day, maybe it's around Mother's Day. You could come up with a Mother's Day gift that has a journal, a bookmark, a mug, several things, and you can put those in a basket. And what that does is you maybe have 6 or 7 items, but you tie that to one item. And so that when you sell that basket, it's actually going to take all of the products for each individual item out of inventory. And it's just a good way. I know stores that have used that to, you get to bump the price up a little bit and then maybe put in a slower seller in that basket. Just a good, people like to get more for their money. And so,
yeah, I'm going to bring up, so we got this as a pro tip from the last CPE show is one store, they never put stuff in closeout. Literally when an item is not moving, they will take that item and several other items and bundle them together in a kit to sell them out of the store, so that they're still getting, they'll pair it with 2 or 3 good items. And then it allows that slower selling item to be sold at full retail and not taking as much of a hit on it by bundling it with some other products. So that's what John was talking about. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get over that.
yeah. And then you want to have a good balance between, having enough stock to meet the demand of the event, but don't overwhelm yourself with items that aren't sellable. And so just know, you only have so much, so much moving parts and time. Yeah.
All right. And so now I want to talk about, this is going to be a little bit of kind of going back over some information we've already talked about, but using version 9, our BSM's mobile point of sale can streamline the payment process at offsite events. And it's important to have portable tools like a laptop or a tablet, the receipt printer, the credit card reader to make sure that everything goes smooth. And I put on here slides 5 and 6 because you can go back to those and see the recommended hardware. Even put a little picture of it. The other thing, and this is probably the most common thing that we saw because we asked you a few questions on what do you hope to learn and are there specific challenges? And probably 60% of you talked about connectivity, ensuring that you have a strong internet connection or data connection when you're doing these. It's so important that you have a reliable internet or data connection so that you can process the transactions, you can run credit cards, and do everything that you need to do. So connectivity is really so important. I do recommend that, you're connecting to Wi-Fi. If the Wi-Fi goes down, you need to have a backup. So I do recommend bringing like a swipe simple or a square so that if the Wi-Fi or the internet goes down, you can still ring up cells. There are going to be manual cells, right? So you might take a manual. A lot of people will take a manual pad in case something happens. You can do manual receipts, things like that. But have that other swipe simple or square in your back pocket that you can connect to a mobile hotspot or cellular so that you still are able to do those cells. And it just ensures you're not going down.
And so and that reminds me, Stephen, those mobile hotspots do use some data, and so they use a lot more battery. And so I would definitely make sure that you take those chargers because you're going to want the juice.
Yeah, portable chargers are key. You don't want to run out. You don't want your phone to die in the middle of an event. That can be the worst thing that could possibly happen. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to John and talk a little bit about your staff that you're going to be taking to these offsite events.
So definitely assigning roles is going to be key here. Offsite events can get real busy. So it's helpful to assign specific tasks to each of your team members. Maybe someone's managing the inventory, maybe have someone else doing the actual sales. And then if you have the staff for it, someone exclusively just interacting with customers. And so that can make for a great event with a focus on customer service. Another thing is before you go, you might do some real world training and just do some role playing and just, have someone be a customer and someone ringing up. Because although it is this close to the same thing as the software in the store, the mobile gives it a little bit different feel. And so it might be good to just to do some practice in the store before you actually go out and do the real sell.
Yeah, and just to highlight on that, we have updated the training mode in the last year. And so now when you're in training mode, it's real clear that you're in training mode. You're able to pretty much do everything in the training mode. And so if you don't know what training mode is, send an email to support and they can send you a link to a document on how to use that training mode.
It just lets you play store.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. So let's move on to this next one. Promoting your event, right? Promoting that you're going to be somewhere is so key. When you have a heads up, sometimes these can be last second, and obviously not all these are going to apply, but pre-event marketing is really important. Encourage attendees, encourage the people that are coming, all of your attendees that are going to be coming in, like let them know on social media, email, in-store promotions, put a sign on your door that you're going to be doing this special event. Promote those events, special and in those special promotions or giveaways can definitely increase the interest. Like John was saying earlier, like create those special event only items that they can only get there. And then during your event, you want to make sure that you engage with everybody via social media. So not just the people that are there, post to social media, do live updates, do a live video. Encourage.
It reminds me of kind of back in the day when you had to FM someone on radio. And we're here at
live. What were those called? I don't remember what that word is.
Radio.
Yeah, events. When they still have them. But then the other thing is share stuff out to social media with using as special event hashtags just to kind of highlight your events. And then the other thing is create post-event emails or social media posts thanking your customers for attending. And also promote your future event. Like, hey, we had such a good time at First Baptist Church. Next week, we're going to be at the women's gathering at Second Baptist Church or whatever that happens to be. Promote those future events. Follow-up communication can convert people that are attending these things into your regular customers. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is promote your website. These people that are going to these events may not be local, right? They may be going back to another state or another city or whatever it is. Turn them into an online shopper, right? So promote your website. If you don't have one I put on here, talk to us. We can create a website in less than a week that has all your items on there, your pricing, everything. You don't have to add all the products manually. It's a really nice website. A lot of people that are actually attending today have our website, and so they can speak into that a little bit more than even I can. But promote your event. It's not enough just to go to the event. Promote it before you go, promote it while you're there, and promote it when you get home. And then promote it on your website too. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to John to talk about a little bit after the event.
Yeah. So after the event, do some self-reflecting, get feedback, encourage getting feedback from, both your staff, but also the customers, just to tell you what went well and, what can be improved. We can always do better. And that's what that feedback can get us. And then based on that feedback, just use that to analyze what happened and for your next site, just to have improved strategies, adjust, maybe your product selection can be changed. Maybe your pricing needs to be adjusted, maybe more or less staff. So we just keep that in mind. But yeah, just kind of think back and just think hard on exactly what went well and what we could do better.
Yeah, absolutely. And now this brings us to our kind of final section. Well, I say final section. I guess the final section will be the Q&A. But this is going to be best practices for remote sales and offsite access to BSM from you, right? You, the stores. So these are all going to be user submission tips that we got. I'm going to talk a little bit about licensing, and then we're going to jump into your actual tips. So the first thing I want to talk about, stores are licensed for a specific number of concurrent users who can access the BSM system simultaneously. So this can be any mix of remote or local sales. Now, it's important to plan your access during the busy times just to make sure you're ensuring smooth operations, right? You're not getting login conflicts or anything like that. And so right here on the slide, as you can see, I gave you an example. If you had 2 users and you could have 2 remote users. So if your store was closed, you could be using both 2 laptops remotely to do sales. Or you could have both of your stores in store, which is your traditional setup, right? Both registers open, ringing up people. Or you could have one working in the store and one working remotely. What do we consider using the software? If the software is open on that computer, it is using the license. So if you're going off site, then you need to close out of the software on one of your registers if you only have a 2-user license to be able to do that remote sell. So again, just plan so that you avoid any of those things. If you need another license, maybe this is something that you're about to get started and getting going. You need to add another license. Talk to me. I'll look up your licensing and let you know what it would cost to add another user. If you mention that you are in this webinar or that you watched this webinar, you get a 10% discount off of that upgrade. So if you need to add another user, you can get 10% off that user, but you do have to mention the webinar to get that discount. All right, so let's jump into your the ones you submitted. Here we go.
So the first one here is to a static IP address. So when you connect to your store remotely, your store has an address on the internet, and that address can change. And so what you can do, if you call your internet provider, they can give you what's called a static IP, which means it just doesn't change. And so that's something I would say hopefully it's inexpensive. If you call them and they try to charge you a lot, don't do that. There's some other things we can help you with to not have to do that. The good thing is more with today's technology. Years ago, your IP address would change a lot. It's got to be now where it really doesn't change too much unless you lose internet. If you lose internet, then they give you a different address, but typically it won't really change. But it will make it. We also did add a feature. So if you think, you try to use your shortcut and it's not working, first thing to do would be, contact the store. We did just add something to the software where someone at the store can go tell you exactly what that IP address on your shortcut should be. And so
what program is that?
It's actually in our Diag program.
Okay.
And so if you have questions about that, we can definitely show you where to find that. Also, you're going to be doing transactions on the PAX A35. I would recommend closing out those cards before, once the event ends, and that program's SLCCP. And so I would go ahead and process those cards.
What would happen if I didn't?
If you didn't, you run the risk of they could charge you a higher percentage if they're processed after a certain time period, after the true transaction was done. And so I would just definitely recommend, going in and making sure that you run those cards.
All right. That's a good one. Thank you. I don't remember who submitted that. I think maybe Deb, but thank you for all these user submissions because these are super helpful. The next one I'm going to talk about, I thought, wow, this, some things, it's the obvious things, but it's like, oh, that makes total sense. Trusting the right team. Okay. If you're sending somebody out to do an event, they're going to be taking money. They're going to be talking to people, it's an extension to your store. So if you send somebody out that is standoffish, has a resting face that's not very happy all the time, then that is what they're going to correlate to being your store. So again, this is an extension to your store. So you want to make sure you send somebody that you trust, that's well trained and ready to handle those remote sales. And then John kind of handled this on the earlier slide with staffing, but assign clear roles and responsibilities. So if you're sending, now a lot of time it's just you or one other person. But if there's two people, let them know, hey, you're going to be kind of in charge of this. I'm going to be in charge of this, so that everything runs smooth. And then the last thing is being accountable for it's crucial to make sure things are running smooth. Make sure that when it comes back in, that you're holding people accountable for what they're doing offsite, whether it's customer service, whether it's sales, or whatever else it is. So that was a really good one. Thank you for that submission.
So here, we have some customers that they decided that they're not going to use the Wi-Fi no matter what, because cellular data can be a little more consistent. I would say Wi-Fi is faster, and if you can get on their Wi-Fi, I would say it could be more reliable. But if you're not able to get on the Wi-Fi, or you just don't trust it, cellular data is always an option. Nowadays, I think most every cell phone plan includes hotspot mobile data, and so that's always an option for you to use it. It's again, depending on the area, hopefully that will be more consistent for you for cellular data.
Yeah. And the thing I would say is for this particular store, just so we make sure their tip gets submitted, is they never use Wi-Fi, right? They use their cellular data every time because they know exactly how it's going to work, how it's going to function, and everything else. So just keep that in mind. All right, and then I think we had one more submission. Virtual sales. If you're having a high volume event, all right, maybe you're going to a mega church or a huge women's or men's event that's going to have a lot of people at it, is offering a virtual option to avoid the lines. And this person, the exact example they use is they have a skip the line sign with a QR code that links directly to their online store, because you really don't want customers walking away because, oh, that line's way too long, right? Instead of missing out on those sales, have several QR codes placed around with your website code so that you're not missing out on that customer walking away. And the other thing, again, by having that signage, it's kind of twofold. You're also marketing that, hey, you can shop our store even when you go back home. It's kind of like what I talked about with marketing, is let them know that you have a web presence, because a lot of people want to support you. They just don't know you're out there, right? So make sure your website provider is doing SEO. If you have a website from us, you don't have to worry about that. We do all the search engine optimization for you, but make sure you're doing some of those things like that. All right. So now we're going to transition a little bit here. We're going to get into a live Q&A. So I talked about it a little bit at the bottom of your window. You should have a little hand, and you can just raise your hand and then we'll call on you, or we can try to talk and not over talk each other. But we want to take what questions do you have and see if we can answer those live. If we don't know the answer, then just know that we will come back to those questions and answer those to you directly.
And just remember to unmute yourself. There's a microphone icon at the bottom on the far left. You just click on the microphone and that will unmute you. Right now we have everyone muted, but you can unmute yourself and ask any questions. So whenever you're ready, if you have a question, let us know.
All right. So if you have a question, just hit that little hand icon at the bottom or raise your hand or yes. Okay. So let me open this queue up. All right. So I'm going to lower your hand, Deb, and then I'm going to unmute you here if I can. Actually, I think you're unmuted. Can you talk?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Great. Thanks. So my challenge when I am doing sales remotely is with reconcile the PAX unit when I get back.
Okay.
So when I come back, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So a couple times what I did was I connected to my unit. Well, right now it's in my home, right? So my main unit, and it reconciled fine, and it printed that sheet that shows the different sales.
Right.
So I can print that. But then one time it wouldn't do it on my regular system. So I went to my laptop and
Okay.
tried to reconcile it from using the system from my laptop. But see, you just mentioned that SLCCP that shows if there's an open batch. And
Yes.
for some reason, I couldn't close the batch. So I
Okay.
had to kind of go back and forth from my laptop, which is what I used remotely, to my home system. And just as I went back and forth, one of them took. So I was on the internet. That PAX unit, you can change which internet if you're going
Right.
through your hotspot on your phone, or if you're going through your internet, in your store or in your home.
Right.
So the PAX unit can go back and forth. So it was quite the challenge going back and forth to what this PAX unit was recognizing or not recognizing, whether it was recognizing the laptop, recognizing the main system, recognizing my hotspot for the internet, because I was told, make sure you're on the internet and make sure you're like plugged in
Yeah.
before you try to do any of it. So there were just so many variables,
Yeah.
and
And what?
yeah, it
Go
gets
ahead.
kind of tricky. So what do you think is the best way? Is what?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we will give you what we'll do is we'll get you a document on here's the exact steps of what you need to do, so that at the end of the day it's not like, oh no, what am I supposed to do? We'll get you a step by step, like here you're done. You've run your SLTL to total out that register. Now we want you to run SLCCP before you even disconnect, while you're still connected to that event, because everything's happened there. If you run that SLCCP there at the event, everything should process because it knows it's right there. It's an active batch. It's that day. And so we'll get you some proper steps on exactly what you do at the end of the day. We've kind of covered them in here today. And so probably some of this is a little bit new, but we'll definitely get those down for you.
Great, thanks.
Good question. Thanks, Deb. All right. Who else has a question? Or not just questions. Who else has valuable input, right? Okay. I see you right there. Let me lower your hand. It should unmute your mic as well, I believe. Oh, no, you may have to click unmute manually there. There you go.
So more just a comment. We've found in the last little bit, the on hold feature works really well. We do a lot of conferences. And so during the break, everybody comes and they're shopping at our tables. And then they say, okay, conference is going to start in another 5 minutes. Everybody comes to the till. They want to pay for all their stuff. So what we do is we usually, we always make sure and have some paper and some pens, and we just say, hey, write your name on your stack of books, and we'll put them aside. Then when they're in session, then we go through and we put their items on hold, so that when they come back and they just say, yeah, I had some items on hold, my name's Jane, you pull up Jane and it's a faster sale.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So just to highlight kind of what he's talking about, and this is not on by default, but it is a place on hold feature that they take advantage of. And what it is on your subtotal screen. So you'd ring up the 5 items on your main screen. You'd go to the subtotal screen, and right there's going to be a payment option called place on hold. When you place it on hold, it's going to pop up a memo box that asks for a name, and that's where he's putting the name on that box. And when he hits OK, it just puts it in a hold. Then
So you're not taking payment yet.
Yeah, you're not taking payment yet, but then when they come back, you have a retrieve the place on hold option where you retrieve that order back in. You choose their name because there'll just be a list of all the names. You choose the name, and then it goes to the subtotal. You're ready to take their payment and get them right out. Great point. Love that one. Gonna write it down. Probably cover that at the CPE training, because that is gold right there. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Good Wake Up Wednesday.
That is be a good Wake Up Wednesday.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Who else?
You're the experts, just to throw that out there.
That's right.
I-
Go ahead, Bill.
Is that place on hold? I thought we could only put one or two items on hold at a time. So is that in the POS screen on the bottom?
So
Okay.
that's a different, that's a place on, you do have a place on hold option on the subtotal screen. That's only one transaction at a time. That's a, I left my wallet in the car type.
Right, yeah.
This place on hold is a feature that we turn on through settings. And then we can tell you exactly how to turn that on. But then over with your credit cards and check and all your payment types, that's where you'll have a place on hold option over there.
So I just need to get with you to turn
Mhm,
that on or,
You
okay.
can email our support at bsmgr.com and we
Okay.
will send you instructions on how to do that.
I might have that on the customer docs hub if you have
Yeah.
that.
And to be
Customer-
honest, that's such a good one. We will probably do a Wake Up Wednesday
Yeah,
on
that'd be
that
good.
topic because that is such a good feature.
Yeah.
Especially, I never really thought about it in that exact scenario of, hey, conference is starting back in 5 minutes. I don't want to miss the conference. I'm going to just go away and not buy the items anymore. Instead, hey, that's good stuff. Probably going to cover that on a Wake Up Wednesday. So, but ahead of time, you can email our support. All right. Who else? We have a really good turnout. I love it. Just a reminder while we're waiting on somebody, remember, click the little hand button if you want to talk or just click unmute on your mic. And no, there's not a lot of people talking at the same time, so you don't have to raise your hand. You can just click unmute and talk. But we are going to be doing another one of these webinars. If you have any feedback on how to make it work smoother, I don't know if the email going out was the best way and then following up with another email with a kind of the confirmation to add it to your calendar. If you have any suggestions on making this smoother the next time, please email those to us because this is something new that we want to do. We want you to take more advantage of what you have with BSM. So that's why we try to add certain things in there like kits and other features and like the place on hold feature, right? What are other stores doing? And you get so much good feedback from actual stores doing actual sales that it's really good. So what other comments do you have? Questions? If you want to know, something pricing wise, if you want to know how much does a receipt printer cost, how much does a PAX A35, just to let you know, we're going to be sending an email out. The S300s credit card machines that you have in your store, we've been selling those for a long time now. Some are like 7 years old now. Those are being discontinued due to PCI compliance. So know that if you're setting up budgets or coming up, you need to start planning on moving over to the PAX A35s either way. Now that A35, if you have an extra register, that can be used to take off site. So you can get a kind of a double value out of that. But if you want to know pricing on licensing, adding a license, how much does the mobile scanner cost? How much does any of those things? You can email sales at bsmgr.com, and I'll be glad to send you information on any of that you need.
And
Bill,
we are doing a
Do
discount.
you have a date on when the S300s will not be usable?
It's so I don't think it'll ever go unusable technically. It's already past its expiration date technically.
End of life.
End of life has already happened on that unit. The reason we haven't emailed, they're not starting to charge yet. Eventually what they'll do is charge you a non-compliance extra
Right.
little fee on the top of the credit card. They have not started doing that yet. And we do have an email that's going to be going out, I think next week or the week after, about that very topic. But since you're on the webinar, we wanted to announce it on here as well.
And then that 10% discount if you are looking at adding any kind of users, being here or mentioning it, we'll get you that discount.
Yeah. Deb, go ahead.
So one thing that we learned the hard way, we were outside, so we weren't in like a convention center or anything like that. We were outside for these summer markets and craft shows, and we would watch the weather. Now, obviously, you had to pay ahead of time to be able to have your booth there, and we'd watch the weather. But a couple of times, our weather app, when we asked the managers of the shows, it looked like it would be a clear day, and then all of a sudden, on this one show, it was a deluge, and you only really had about 5 or 10 minutes to kind of pack everything up. So I guess my advice from our experience from those situations, because that's all electronic. I mean, we had, our laptop, we had the PAX unit, we had so many electronic things, and we were like, oh man, we've got to get this out of here, because if a wind blows, and we had to get it into the car to make sure that, and, so some of our products, when we were moving things back and forth, really didn't handle the move back and forth. So some of our products are not looking as fresh as they normally would, like in the store, So we had to watch out for that and watch out for the weather. So if anybody's thinking of trying to do things in, outside, like those might be two things you wanted to have, like an alternate plan, however your canopy is set up for if some weather comes through that you're not expecting. And also to keep in mind as you're moving things, you want to try to keep the products as fresh as possible. So those were our experiences.
Great. Thank you. That's a great point.
And I will tell you, sidewalk sales, we have been getting a lot of feedback on sidewalk sales have been doing really well. And so if you have a nice big sidewalk, even a small sidewalk, whatever it is, put some products out there to attract customers into the store. But this remote access is really good for those like sidewalk sales or little events, whatever that event is. And look in your community, look at the Visitors Bureau, find out where these little events are going to happen, whether flea markets or, festivals or whatever they are. Typically not very expensive to get in them, and you have a captive audience. And not only do you have a captive audience, you have an audience that's going to be coming by your booth and then finding out like, oh, I had no idea you were on Main Street. It's crazy how, well, we've been here 30 years. How do you not know who we are? We take those things for granted. But if you can get into those events, especially when you find out, oh, it's like $50 to have a booth, or whatever it is, $50, if you made 0 sales and you only paid $50, think of how many people you're going to advertise to in that short amount of time. So those type of things. The other thing we talk about a lot is if you're not utilizing that roundup feature in version 9, that is another thing for especially connecting with your community. Find an organization. I suggest swapping it out about every 3 to 6 months and getting more exposure, right? The one thing is you're making a donation on behalf of your customers, because it's not you making the donation, because your customers are saying, yeah, I want to round up my change. You're putting it in a department, and then you're sending that money over to that organization. And so they're going to start talking about you. It just, whatever you can do to get in front of your community and create visibility. It's branding for your store. It's things like that you really want to take advantage of. All right, we've got another about 6 minutes here. We want to wrap it up around the top of the hour, so we've got a few more minutes. Remember, we will be sending out this webinar. We're recording it, so we'll be sending out a link to it. You may get a link automatically. Again, this is kind of new. I told it to automatically record, and so you may get a link to it automatically because you attended it. But either way, we will send a link out for that webinar. And we'll also send a link directly to the slideshow. You can see our notes on it and stuff like that. This is John's slide, Steven's slide, and whatever else, our little presentation notes. And then you can click those links that are inside the presentation to access those documents. And just so you know, both of those documents are in our Documents Hub. And if you don't know what our Documents Hub is, email support and say, what is the Documents Hub? Because that is a location that it's a Google Doc that has a list of some of the most important documents that we have. And it's right there where it'll say like SLOC, ordering, whatever it is. There's all these documents that can allow you to dive deeper into the software and learn that one new thing, right? Don't settle on don't get complacent on what you're using. Try to grow in your knowledge especially in the software, because it's just going to be that more advantageous for you.
And if you're not a part of the Bookstore Manager users group on Facebook, make sure that you're a part of that, and that customer docs hub, and then also our training hub documents are both on that Facebook group. So if you're not in our Facebook group, make sure you get in that.
Yes. And when you join, you'll be asked, it's called Bookstore Manager Users. And when you click on it, it's going to ask what your account number is, what your store name is. Answer as many questions as you can. If you don't put any answers, it auto rejects it. So just know that if you don't put any information, because we get so many spam requests from everywhere.
It's nothing personal.
Yep. All right, we've got enough time for one or two more questions or comments or anything else. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and throw that question out.
Hello. Can you guys
Hello,
hear me?
we can hear you.
Let me turn my camera on.
Hey.
I'm with FBCG
Yes.
bookstore, and
Perfect.
I did have a question in terms of inventory. I
Sure.
know normally, since we have a lot of products inside of our store, sometimes our inventories don't jive up with what's actually on hand.
Okay.
Is there like a feature? I know, well, I was told there are certain features. Is there a feature where if let's say that we have 0 books inside of Bookstore Manager, but we actually have 5 on hand?
Sure.
Well, actually, we can even say, let's say we have 0 books on hand as well, and we made a purchase of a book that we have 0 on hand. Is there a feature where maybe the number goes into a negative, so if we do end up receiving more, the inventory still stays
Yeah,
correct? Does that make sense? I hope it's
yeah,
making
it does. It stays accurate.
Yeah,
There's an option in the software that says number of days to keep in arrears, so that if you do sell it before you receive it, it's gonna, like, if you put it to a 3, it's for 3 days, it's gonna try to pull that out of inventory.
okay.
And so you also, at one of your end of the day reports, your SLIV should show if you sell something that you didn't have on hand, will be listed on that report as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it
okay.
does handle that.
But yeah,
Okay.
setting that day is huge, because if you put it to 5 days, maybe you're going to be gone 5 days and you just got this massive shipment in, you can go set it to 5 days because maybe your event's 3 days long. And so you can take all those products, sell them. And then when you come back in, it's, when you're selling those online, selling them at the event at the remote location, it's going to go back and balance those out.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Great question.
So that makes that makes sense. Thank you very much. That was my
Yeah, of
question.
course.
You're welcome. Good question.
See Kim back there.
Hi, Kim.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, I hear Bill. See Bill. Hi, Kim. Oh, but you're not coming through. So I don't know. There you are.
Oh, I just said hi.
Oh,
Hi.
hi, Kim. They're fellow Texans. All right. We're now at the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap this thing up. Like I said, because you registered for this event, you will get a copy of the video so that you can go back and watch or slow down something if you want to re-listen to something. Also, you'll get the actual slideshow so you can click on those links. Remember to join those groups. Huge way to remember, we do a Wake Up Wednesday every Wednesday, 10 o'clock Texas time, Central time. I never know if it's CST or CDT or
I think
I
it's
I don't know what those
CST,
mean, but
it's CST.
there you go. See, so I knew somebody would know. But again, attend those Wednesday Wake Up Wednesdays, because we're telling you about new features. If there's been something new added to the software, we're talking about miscellaneous things. And then again, be on the lookout for other webinars. Do you have an idea for another webinar? Right now, the only one we have on the books right now is for websites. So if you can think of another webinar, let us know. We want to continue doing these continual educations so that you can take more advantage. So, all right.
We've got a question.
Oh, we got one question. Let's take this question before we go. Go ahead, Terry.
How do I get on Wake Up Wednesday?
Okay, so we share that to our bookstore manager software general page, and we also share it in our bookstore manager users page. It's also already set up in his event now, so now you can actually go and click, I'm going to attend the event, and it'll send you out reminders, and it's real easy to click the link to join. So we did finally, Facebook was changing stuff so frequently, we didn't want to schedule those events, but we have now scheduled those. So those will happen automatically if you go and you can say, I'm going to the event. It'll remind you.
Okay.
From our Facebook pages.
Good question. All right. We're going to wrap everything up. Thank you so much for attending this. We hope you found it valuable. We hope you learned something today. Please, if you have any feedback to give us on how we could do this better, we are definitely open for that as well. We want this to be easy to do, easy to attend. And we're just so thankful for each and every one of you. We just know we pray for you every day. If you have specific prayer requests, please send those to us because we want to lift those up, those petitions up specifically. So we love you. We are so thankful for each and every one of you. If you have any questions, email our support team or sales team, sales@bsmjo.com or support@bsmjo.com, or give us a call. We always love to talk. So thank you again for attending. We'll talk to you later.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you very
Day.
much. Have a
Have a
blessed day.
blessed day. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mary Margaret.